Could the borrowing numbers have been lowered though? Because you're also sitting on very
next year?
Cash balances.
For next year?
Yeah.
Let's see if we end up having large balances at the end of this year. I mean, but next year, the main change, let me again explain. I've said this many times, I'll say it here again. The change in the fiscal deficit from budget 2021-22 to budget 22-23 is from about 15 lakh 10,000 crores to 16 lakh 61,000 crores approximately. So that is 1 lakh 50,000 crore of extra deficit. In relation to the plan which we had at the beginning of this financial year, the market borrowing number has gone up by about 1 lakh 90,000 crores. So an increase in deficit of 1.5 lakh crores and an increase in borrowing of 190. That's not a huge change. I think the problem is that in the current year, our revised estimates, because we have had huge inflows of small savings, the market borrowing proportion of the current year's deficit is lower than it was in the budget estimates.
Yeah.
Whereas next year, we have again taken small savings receipts at 10% growth over the previous year's budget and not at the level that we have actually seen in the current year. Now, this is a call which, analysts can differ, and we may be wrong, they may be wrong, we may both be wrong, or we may both be right. But the point is this: we can't be sure that small savings inflows will remain at the exceptional levels that we have seen in the current year if interest rates start to change. They are very interest rate sensitive because small savings instruments are relatively illiquid for the investor. They give you a higher yield, but they're not easy to dispose of. So you can't withdraw PPF money when you like. You can't sell a national savings certificate. You can't liquidate it at a moment's notice. But a fixed deposit in a bank is much more liquid, but it offers you a lower rate of interest. But if the interest rate environment changes, which we expect it is likely to change, both for international and domestic reasons, then we may not see those kinds of small savings inflows in 22-23. And if so, then our numbers will actually turn out to be the right number.
I have two follow-up questions. One, actually, an uninformed question on small borrowings from small savings. So there was an item in, where the financing of fiscal deficit numbers are there, which said that there is a negative receipt which is due to higher investment than collection under NSSF on account of surplus cash available for investment in the beginning of the year. But that made me wonder as to what your thinking on small savings borrowings is. Is there
No, let me clarify something. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to, those numbers are really, there is a fund accounting system for the NSSF where we borrow, then we notionally lend it to some states and to our own undertakings. You should really just bypass that. That doesn't tell you anything useful. The number that you actually need to look at is what's given in the budget at a glance.
Yeah, but that I was just wondering, is there sort of a comfort level of, okay, we can borrow this much from NSSF? Is it based on what you think the collections would be simply, or is there more?
No, in practice, it is based on what the collections are. We don't actually have any other, it's not as if the numbers are what they are there. I mean, that's what we collect. Effectively, the fund accounting conceals the fact that if we collect small savings, we have to pay interest on it. Yeah. It doesn't matter how we internally dispose of those savings, whether we pass on a part of it to some public sector undertaking in lieu of some other loan. Point is, if you give me a PPF deposit, the government of India pays you 7.1%. We are on the hook to pay it. It doesn't matter how we internally use those funds. The basic point is, if we get it, we have to service it. So that is a direct offset to market borrowing, but the extent of that offset is very variable. It depends on factors beyond our control, and we can't give a small savings borrowing plan. We can only give you a market borrowing plan. The small savings borrowing is what it is, and it's the market borrowing which will have to adjust to the actuals of the small saving. We can't turn back depositors from the PPF and say, sorry, it's over our borrowing plan, we don't want your deposit.
No, I get that, but I was just, I wanted to know whether there was anything more than just what's coming in. The bigger issue on borrowing, sir, though, is that, over a period of 4 or 5 years, and this is true globally, but India has a problem because borrowings have just risen so sharply, government borrowings. And there is no new source of demand. The one new source of demand everybody's banking on, unfortunately, is not coming through. And I've seen your comments on, the issues there, which is perfectly justified. But it's going to remain an issue because government borrowings are going to keep, coming in at high numbers, at least for the next couple of years. That's going to put pressure on interest rates.
Yeah, it may put pressure on interest rates.
That's a problem for the government, but also for the rest of the economy.
Yes, what do we do? Are you suggesting quantitative easing? I mean,
Not at all. Not at all.
Then what do we do?
I'm actually leading to the
Are you suggesting a faster contraction of the deficit? That's a fair question.
Yes,
I mean,
yes, that is what I'm leading to.
Right.
Well,
Okay, so that's a call that what at the margin is better for the economy. And for us, the question is not what at the margin is better for bond investors. That's not our concern. So for us, at the margin, the question is, for the economy, does a marginal interest rate change of, say, 25 basis points versus an additional amount of capital expenditure, what are the growth effects of the two? And the interest rate sensitivity of private capital investment, we judge to be pretty low, because if it was very sensitive to interest rates, we should have seen a private capital expenditure boom in the last 24 months when we've had ultra low interest rates. That has not proved to be enough to kickstart private capital investment. It is demand, investment expectations are driven by things other than interest rate, especially for small increments like 25 to 50 basis points. So for us, the risk return trade-off was in favor of spending marginally more, while of course consolidating. We are going down. I mean, we're not going up. And the 9.2 last year to 6.9 this year is something that I want to point out. I've pointed it out elsewhere and I'll repeat it. Is the fastest contraction in fiscal deficit in India's history. It is faster than 1991. We've reduced by 2.3 percentage points in a single year. That's never happened before. That's a lot, from 9.2 to 6.9. So it is a contraction. It is now you can say that's because of the GDP growth, of course. But then last year's 9.2 was also because of GDP contraction. So it's a severe correction, and we're continuing to correct at least 0.5% per annum. Now, should it be more is a valid debate, and you are, absolutely right to raise that. But as I'm saying, we took a judgment call that on the margin, what we needed now was to provide a catalyst for the revival of growth and the revival of private investment by pump priming, rather than saving some. Yes, we would have had a lower interest rate if we had a lower deficit. Agreed. But would that be enough for the economy and for growth? Perhaps, perhaps not. We have taken our judgment call. That's it.
There won't be any pressure on the RBI to find ways to bring down yields.
I don't think so. At least I think that's the RBI's call. What they do is their decision, and I think they are mandated to focus on inflation. And if rates go up, well, that's their call.